Will the FBI raid disqualify President Trump from running again in 2024? Well, that's what a number of media outlets are saying. We're going to take a look at those claims, and we're going to look at what constitutional scholars have to say, and we're going to answer that question once and for all. You're not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. It's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, helping to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and insane times. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. And before we begin, make sure to show some love to our sponsor, and that's the one and only Patriot of Patriots, Mike Lindell, and his brand new Mike Coffee. I love this coffee, and you will too. You can get Mike's Coffee delivered right to your front door. It comes in a variety of flavors, ground or whole bean, plus it's certified organic and non-GMO. And the best part is I know that with every sip, I'm supporting a true patriot who's fighting for freedom, and you can do the same. Click on that link below or go to mystore.com and use code Turley for 25% off. That applies to all their products at mystore.com, so make sure to click on the link below or go to mystore.com and use code Turley to get 25% off. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. This is the story that just keeps developing here, largely in terms of how it's revealing how truly diabolical the new left, the cultural Marxist cosmopolitan left, has become. And one of the clear indicators of just how sleazy and impious the modern left is, particularly in the lamestream legacy media, is an assertion that's making its way around the media circuit that the FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago may indeed end up disqualifying President Trump from ever running for office again. Now, the fellow who appears to have gotten this rumor started is a guy by the name of Marcus Elias, who tweeted out last night, quote, "The media is missing the really big reason why the raid today is a potential blockbuster in American politics." And then he highlighted a line under U.S. Code Section 2071 that deals with persons found guilty of intentionally trying to hide or steal classified material. The line reads that a person convicted of such can be, quote, fined under this title or in prison not more than 3 years or both, and shall forfeit his office and be disqualified from holding any office under the United States. Now, let me give you a bit of insight into who this fellow Marcus Elias really is. Elias was Hillary Clinton's lawyer, who was up to his eyeballs in the fabricating of the whole Russian collusion hoax, particularly with regard to the Steele dossier. He's been accused of lying about the funding of the Steele dossier, the fabricated lies about Trump. And Fox News reported that he's been sanctioned in court for unethical conduct. This guy is as low as they come. And yet, others in the media, like Harry Litman of the LA Times, were absolutely giddy about pushing Elias's assertion that Section 2071 can be used to permanently ban Trump from his presidency. Litman cites Elias's assertion and then commented, quote, "So this could be the whole enchilada in terms of DOJ resolution." Now think about what this far-left activist disguised as journalist actually said there. This guy, who by the way is a legal analyst, he's a former federal prosecutor, this guy has no problem whatsoever with the notion that the real motivation behind the FBI raid and the Justice Department's actions is to inflict political retribution against Trump. This is the way the DOJ resolves a problem like Trump. This guy doesn't even bat an eye in response to the notion that the FBI is being intentionally politicized here. So once again, we're seeing members of the media functioning as political hacks who are actually advocating weaponized legalism. So let that hit you. Brought to you, by the way, by the LA Times, but they're not alone. They're hardly alone in all this. Now, that said, my dear namesake, Jonathan Turley, has written a great piece debunking all of this as utter patent nonsense, and he's not alone. A number of constitutional scholars have arrived at the same conclusion as Turley, and interestingly and ironically, these conclusions were reached back in 2016 when a number of Republicans were arguing that Hillary Clinton could be booted off the ballot if she were indicted in a manner comparable to what woke leftist activists in the media are cheering for with Trump. You see, back in 2015, 2016, Republicans were salivating over the prospects that Section 2071 could be used to disqualify Hillary from being able to run for the presidency. But constitutional scholars such as Seth Barrett Tillman showed that there is ample judicial precedent that completely undermines those assertions, specifically cases like Powell versus McCormick and U.S. term limits versus Thornton. Judges have ruled that Congress and the states cannot add to the constitutional qualifications for House and Senate seats in Article 1, and that reasoning, Seth concluded, applies to the qualifications for the presidency in Article 2. In other words, the U.S. Constitution alone provides the qualifications for running for office, and no codes, no states, not even Congress itself, can legally add to those qualifications without passing some kind of constitutional amendment. As Turley made clear in his piece on this, there are constitutional ways to impeach a president or to bar a former president from future office. But unfortunately for these leftist activists disguised as journalists, the mishandling of official records is not one of them. That applied to Hillary back then every bit as much as it applies to President Trump now. Now, again, it goes without saying that President Trump has emphatically not been charged with anything as of yet. Again, I think it's a tall order to try to charge Trump with something like the willful hiding and deleting or possessing of classified information. But even if he were charged, and we could take it all the way, even if he were found guilty, that does not preclude him from holding office. That said, what really is so unbelievably shocking here is just how clueless people like Elias and Littman are when it comes to the astonishingly deleterious effects their Trump derangement will have on our nation. They don't seem to recognize, like I argued in my previous video on this, that as a result of their recklessness, the recklessness of the radical partisanization and polarization that's seeped into the bureaucracies of D.C., they have engaged in the political equivalent of a nuclear launch. And that offensive is going to inevitably cause the other side, the Republicans, to launch at some point their own counteroffensive. And then the question is, when does that end? When you've crossed the line and you've begun indicting and raiding the homes of the other political side. Again, keep in mind, even Trump didn't go there. At every rally, the chants of lock her up, were universally denounced by members of the legacy media and the Democratic Party as beyond the pale of civilized political discourse. But even with Trump, they remained chants. No political opponent got thrown into jail during his tenure. Nancy Pelosi's house was never raided by FBI agents. In fact, all the freaking raiding, all the weaponizing has been directed against Trump supporters like Roger Stone, Steve Bannon, Peter Navarro, J6 protesters. The Democrats have become precisely the monster they claim Trump to be. They are the ones who have launched this political strike. They're the ones not just advocating, but actually carrying out weaponized hits against their political opponents. And there is no way things are ever going to return to any sense of political equilibrium or amicability between the two parties. The Democrats have declared war. They have guaranteed that the Republicans are going to strike back. And if Trump and the renewed MAGA wing of the party get their way, they will strike back in such a way that will end the Democratic Party as a national entity permanently. As always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Before you go, make sure to check out my latest video on how the FBI raid has unleashed the MAGA beast and will indeed shatter the Democrats. You're not going to want to miss it, so make sure to click on that link, and I will see you over there. God bless.